The third worst question that we often have been trained to ask is this one, which is we ask, so what's your budget? Very often, we'll talk to a client who's working with another vendor right now. We say, oh, you're working with them? Yeah. And here's what you're buying from them? Sure. And then what do we ask them? Oh, how much are you paying now? And we might fall into the trap of them asking or saying, hey, we might be able to beat that. And now we've just framed the discussion about price instead of value, which we don't want to do. By a show of hands, how many of you have a potential client who you know is never going to pay what they should pay for your products and services? They're always going to be too cheap. Show of hands. Raise them up there high. Okay? What if I told you that price matters most when the seller believes price matters most? So price matters most, and for that matter, all objections matter most when the seller believes they matter most. 1991, I was working for this mainframe-based company. I got assigned our largest commercial account. These guys were spending $1.5 million a year just on maintenance and support for our products. So I'm kind of strutting around the office feeling pretty good. I got assigned this account. A month into it, this guy, Steve, who's the vice president at my client, calls me up, and Steve says, hey, listen, Ian, we have these 300 images. They're like schematic diagrams that we need to put up on the mainframe. Can you guys do that? I said, of course we can do that. I didn't say of course because I knew that we could. I said of course because I was a young sales guy, and I thought you just say yes and then you figure it out later. So they sent us a tape, because that's how we got stuff back then. There was no flash drive. There was no Google Drive or Dropbox. We got a tape, sent it off to the data center. About a week later, head of engineering, Bob, calls me up. He says, hey, come down to my office. Well, this has never happened before, so I'm a little bit concerned. I walk down to his office. I get in there. The VP of sales is sitting with him. They said, hey, sit down and close the door. I'm pretty sure this is not going to be a good meeting at this point. This guy, Bob, tells me, he says, look, we've looked at this project for your client. The mainframe really isn't designed to display images like these. Now, don't get me wrong, we can do it, but it's going to be really manually intensive. There's a lot of work we have to do. It's going to cost about $1,000 per image to convert the 300 images. I'm thinking it can't get any worse than this. Bill, the VP of sales, says, oh, that's our internal cost. The client needs to pay about $500,000. Now I know it can't get any worse than this, and I conclude two things right away. One, you can't deliver news like this over the phone. And two, I should probably start working on my resume. Because when I deliver this news, I'm going to be the sacrificial lamb. So I'm like really upset about this thing. I come in the next morning, I have this epiphany. I'm like, wait, I got it. So I call up my man Steve, and I said, Steve, listen. It occurs to me, we met at our annual conference, but other than that, we don't really know each other. Here's what I'd like to propose. I'm going to fly out to you first thing Tuesday morning. I'm going to get to you about noon. We're not talking business at all on Tuesday. I've got a tea time set up for golf. I've got dinner reservations best place in town. This way we get to know each other, and Wednesday morning, we'll talk about your project. So why do you think I did that? What do you think? You're experienced salespeople. Why do you think I did that? Soften them up. All right, what else? Develop a relationship. By the way, these are all great reasons. I'm in my early 20s. I'm just thinking, dude, if I'm getting fired on Wednesday, I'm having a great Tuesday. Now, before I leave on the trip, Bill, the VP of sales, comes to me and says, hey, listen, these guys are like our flagship client. They're in all of our marketing. We're a public company. I mean, we can't handle a PR nightmare. So I tell you what, I talked to the executive team. You can sell this thing at cost. So why don't you propose it at $300,000? I push back a little bit on engineering. If you need to, you can sell it for $280,000. Like the 20 grand is going to matter, right? But, okay, thanks. So we got to this meeting. We have this great day. I'm not even playing customer golf because I'm like figuring I'm toast anyhow. It's like, no, you'll have to putt it. Right? The next morning, I get to his office for an 8 a.m. meeting. I get there at 7:45. Steve is waiting in the lobby at the reception desk 15 minutes before our appointment for me to arrive. I'm like, oh man, this is awful. He pulls me into a conference room and he says, so Ian, do you have a solution for these images? And of course, I'm petrified to talk about this because price matters most when the seller, who is me, believes that price matters most. So I think about it a little bit and I decide, you know what, I'm going to stall. And so I said to him, I said, well, can you describe for me, Steve, a little bit more about this issue you talked about getting these images converted? I mean, why do you guys need to do this? He says, oh, you know what, Ian? I don't think we ever talked about it. See, our distributors overseas carry our products as well as our competitors' products. They've all moved to a PC-based system. They're just sending out CD-ROMs. We're still printing out paper. So by the time we get this stuff to all of our dealers, it takes about 6 weeks from the time they're getting the CD. We've calculated that we're losing between $30 and $40 million a quarter because we can't get the images out there sooner. $300,000, big number, small number now. And it's a small number because I went beyond the tip of the iceberg of issue, and now I got to the impact of him not solving the problem. Steve went on to say to me, look, Ian, if I don't find a solution to this thing in a hurry, I'm going to be looking for a new job. So I knew at that point this was really important for Steve to solve. I also discovered that exact moment that Steve and I had more in common than I originally thought. But who was doing the convincing of issue, impact, and importance? Me or Steve? Steve was. It's not your job to convince your client why their issue they're asking about has an impact on the organization and why it's important to them. It is our job, however, to ask the right questions so they convince us that their issue has enough impact and is important enough to solve to make it worth our time to help them find a solution. And if they can't convince us of that, how much time do you want to spend trying to come up with a solution for a problem that your customer doesn't think is worth solving? The answer would be 0. Because here's what I can assure you. If you are more passionate about solving the problem than your customer is, then bring your wallet because you're going to have to pay for it.